Welcome back, everyone. This is part 2 of the King's Castle's New Year's Spectacular.
Slammin' Spectacular.
King James along with Blair Chopin.
Hey, guys.
And tonight is really a night about reflection. So, Blair, I've got a quick question for you.
Sure.
A lot of crazy things have gone down both in the wrestling industry and entertainment-wise in 2016. If you had to pick maybe your top 5 moments of the year, what would you say?
Wow, I can't come up with 5 off the top of my head, but I'll give you my favorite WWE moment.
Okay.
Which is going to be predictable, given it's coming from me and my fandom. But I loved when Goldberg came back on Raw.
I would definitely...
That pulled at my heartstrings a bit.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with that.
I think he was genuinely choked up. Well, first he just kind of went through the gamut of emotions, which I thought was like kind of human. First he was like screaming at the crowd, sort of obscenity, screaming at the crowd. And then he got in the ring, and I think he got a little bit choked up.
Mm-hmm.
The crowd was shouting his name.
Because we hadn't seen that in 12 years.
Right, he was getting choked up, and I thought that was really human. And then afterwards, he got his kid on the stage and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, in the ring.
That was a special moment for me because growing up, I watched Goldberg pretty much as religiously as you did growing up as a kid in WCW, and I always noticed how he was trying to be a big role model for the kids, and I think he did that very well. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I've talked about this, but I've actually had the privilege of meeting Goldberg twice in my time, so thank you, Mr. Goldberg, for those memories, and thank you for coming back.
Well, I thought it was cool for, one of the reasons I thought it was cool because it kind of was, like we said, breaking kayfabe, like they said, breaking character.
Right.
Because he's always been kind of a, but he's kind of like been kind of this monster character, for lack of a better term. And he doesn't say much, and he just
a friendly monster.
Yeah, and he just kind of kicks ass, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like he was opening up, and it was like this real human moment. And I thought it was very cool.
I agree. Now,
what was your favorite WWE moment?
Well, it's actually a tie.
Okay.
Because Goldberg was great. I'll give him that. But there was one other return in 2016 that I think kind of upstaged him because it happened earlier in the year.
Okay.
And I'm talking about the return of the Crown Prince, Shane McMahon.
Oh, yes.
I'll tell you something. We hadn't seen Shane for the better part of 70 years going into WrestleMania. And I honestly thought, okay, here comes another one of those vintage McMahon family storylines to try to save the company or...
Right, that's exactly what I thought too.
Or to try to pull Shane back in.
Like you kind of thought it was just going to be some cliche thing we've seen a lot for the past 17 years.
But I did not think for 1 second, number one, Shane would be willing to step inside Hell in a Cell against The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Nor did I think he was still as much of a daredevil now as he was back then. But I'll tell you something. I don't know where you and I both...
We watched it together.
You and I both sat here in this room and watched WrestleMania back in April. I honestly am still in awe when I think about that dive from the top of the cell through the announce table.
Because
that was honestly one of the most shocking things I've ever seen.
We talked about it. We gave Shane a lot of credit because, like, he doesn't have to do stuff like that, but he's always been about proving himself.
Right.
But, I really thought going into that match, I was like, this is mainly going to be in the ring. A lot of stuff's going to happen. Eventually, The Undertaker's going to win. But I didn't expect him to go and do something like that. And his kids were in the front row. They were frightened.
Exactly.
He said a prayer before he went off. You could tell he was doing the Catholic thing. And it was just like, I've been watching wrestling for years, like yourself. And I don't know if I've ever been so shocked by something. I was like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
He knows how rich he is, right? He doesn't need to do this.
Well, and to his credit...
That's what I'm saying.
To his credit, Vince McMahon has always said that he would never force his athletes to do something that he wouldn't do himself. And with all due respect, Vince hadn't been in the ring in I don't know how long.
Yeah, but did Vince do that? I don't know if a lot of the wrestlers on the roster would do that.
Listen, if Vince McMahon is willing to take an F5 from Brock Lesnar at nearly 70 years old, he's willing to do anything.
I don't know, James. I kind of think jumping off the Hell in the Cell onto a table is like a whole different level of...
Well, you know...
I don't know. Like what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. I don't think a lot of the guys on the main roster would have done that.
Well, probably not.
That's why I was so impressed by it, that Shane did it, out of all people.
Me too. Especially after 7 years being away from the company, to have your first match back be inside that structure, and then to do that is crazy. But it was awesome.
It was a moment.
But
they always say they had the WrestleMania moments, and I think that was this year.
Absolutely. But honestly, I thought one of the most shocking sequences, I should say, out of the entire year for me was the fact that they've been trying to push the women's division so much over the course of the past 2 years. Because let's be honest, when you and I were watching growing up as kids
talked about this a lot,
during the Attitude Era, the women were looked at as nothing more than eye candy because they
objectified.
They would use them for bikini contests and lingerie pillow fights and bra and panties, and a few of the Attitude Era divas even posed for Playboy.
So it's been a total of 180, right?
Right.
Not 360 because I mean
now the women are classified as legitimate athletes.
Oh, definitely. Not only that, I think like they're trying to make it to a thing where it rivals the popularity of the male superstars.
And not only that, but the rivalry between Sasha and Charlotte this year especially has broken boundaries. I mean, they had the first ever women's Hell in a Cell. They had a women's Falls Count Anywhere in Charlotte, which stole the show. So they took each other to the limit. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if probably in about 5 years from now we see a renewal of that rivalry, sort of what we saw with Trish and Lita back in 2004. So that
it's going to be like that big of a rivalry, but this is going to be like a whole different thing because of how legitimized women's wrestling and the WWE has become.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, you're right. That was a big plot line this year.
But arguably the biggest twist of all was something that we talked about for a long time on this show, and that was when the brand extension was reinstated. Now, I gotta be honest. After 2011, I thought it was done. After they decided to mirror them back together, I didn't think the brand extension was going to work, but I was wrong. They've really shaken things up, and they've made both shows a lot better.
I think I would agree with that.
I mean, we've talked about before how they tried to build SmackDown to be a more competitive brand alongside Raw, and I think it's worked. But
I think it was a smart idea because not only to make SmackDown a more competitive brand, which we've talked about, but they saw they had just kind of this huge influx of guys in NXT who are very popular and very capable of going to either one of those rosters. So they had to get them involved somehow without overloading both of those cards every week.
Exactly.
So I think that was very important. They capitalized on that. Also, they had a great mix of veterans that needed the spotlight.
Yeah.
And young up-and-coming guys that needed the spotlight.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then, and they also know, they're also very smart, they realize how popular drafts are. Like the NFL and other sports. The NFL draft and the NBA draft. Even though nothing really happens except people walking up steps and putting on a hat. Those things draw huge numbers.
And I will say also, this year, the influx of the international tournaments was great. I mean, the Cruiserweight Classic was an overwhelming success for the network.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cruiserweights now being drafted exclusively to Raw, and they have their own platform on Tuesday nights to 205 Live. So they're huge.
Well, I think that's something that the WWE has done really well. They realize that in this day and age, you can't just have a normal card and attract every possible viewer, because people can view whatever they want on their phones or even on their TVs at this point.
Yeah.
So you have to have a little something for everyone. And I mean, they've even had cartoons on their network, comedies,
right? Camp WWE and WWE Storytime and all that.
And people love high flying Daredevil stuff. We're going to give them the Cruiserweight division. Right. So they've really spread out their brand without compromising the quality, which is impressive.
And as I noted before, a couple weeks ago, they're about to do that again because this year they've got the brand new UK Championship coming up, and that even though it'll be a shorter tournament, that'll expand the reach of the WWE even more. So I've got high hopes for that this year. But anyway, when we come back, we're gonna talk a little more about the year in review. Plus, we're getting closer and closer to midnight, so stay with us.
We're only at 10:15, but we're getting there, baby. Is that 10:15? So that's yeah, we're at 10:15. So I'm gonna make a point before we close up this video.
All right.
Because I was thinking about this and it tripped me out, which happens occasionally.
Okay.
Think about wrestling in 1986 compared to, or even more likely 1983 than where it is in 2016.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about how international it is, how the WWE just has to spread its wings and has to have something for everyone. Mm-hmm. And think about in the 80s, how it was just there were so many regional brands.
Yeah.
And there was no big company. And now there's basically one company that does everything. With international reach, cartoons, an entire network and everything. And that's why Linda McMahon got a job in the cabinet.
Maybe so.
I have no idea, but just think about that. Think about how quickly things change.
It has to do with her business in general.
But just in general, think how quickly things change. In one and maybe a little more than one generation. How quickly pro wrestling has changed.
Without question. So,
but anyways, we can go to the next video.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back.
That was the most random thing I've said on here. Probably not. At least it was on topic.